Welcome to the Art and Hustle podcast, a gallery of conversations, a space where you can hear all the amazing stories and life lessons of my guests. I'm your host, Lindalcheung, fashion designer turned multimedia artist, and I want to give you a space to tell your story.
Yeah, I look to get students to fight peer pressure was a big issue
Hmm.
for me personally because I just felt again it goes back to what did I want to help create? I wanted to help
Yeah,
create individuals,
yeah,
and you can't be an individual if you've decided to become a sheep and you're following the herd,
yeah,
and not all herds are equal, you know?
yeah. Hmm.
So that's one of the biggest things, and of course, all these politicians, all these especially the conservatives, what they're trying to do is make people into sheep to believe any horse
Yeah.
poop that they can get them to believe,
And
and
controlling the books that are going out there.
yeah, I mean, um, for example, like I remember teaching African American lit, I was pretty open about racism. Okay, now this whole argument about critical race theory to me is a laugher. All right,
Hmm.
you guys in Central ISIP lived the critical race theory. You knew about structural racism.
Yeah.
Okay. Your black friends, especially, they knew about, you know, st the structural uh, protocols and
Hmm.
rules that
Yep.
kept black people down. And when people say, well, look at them now, they have more and more black people are they're lawyers, they're doctors, and what are they whining about? What are they complaining about? Things have gotten a lot better. I had a friend of mine who said to me once, I think I told you the story, but he said to me once we were out drinking with all our surfing friends, and I'm in the car ready to he's driving me back to his house where my car was, and before I get out of the car, he was liquored up just enough
Hmm.
to ask me the following question, and he prefaced it by saying, "Gee, Bill, I know you work with a lot of multicultural colleagues and multicultural students." He said, "But you know what?" And he was a business guy. He said, "When are these black people going to stop whining and complaining?"
Oh no, I think what's happening is good.
I
Oh
didn't
my
know. Stop whining and complaining
God.
about this situation.
Oh my
Okay.
God. Yeah.
I
Oh
didn't tell you.
my
Stop whining and complaining
God.
about this situation.
Oh
Okay.
my God.
So I said, well, so of course,
Well, let me tell
so I
you.
said, well, I said, here's what I know. Even though I have had many students and are, you know, or who are very successful,
Hmm.
lawyers and doctors and this and that and the other thing.
Yeah.
I said, but you know what? Black folk have been oppressed for at least 400 years,
Hmm.
okay?
Hmm.
And probably, even though things have gotten a lot better, they'll probably maybe stop whining in about another 200 years.
Maybe.
Maybe
Yeah.
because the structural racism is still here,
Yeah. And
okay?
it's going to be there for a very long time.
I'll give you a perfect case in point. I had a real estate license, okay, for a couple of years,
Hmm.
doing what Jordan's doing, and I
Hmm.
used to do it part time.
Yeah. Oh, after CI?
During CI,
Yeah.
remember we
Oh,
were making in those early days
yeah.
in my 20s and 30s when we were making peanuts, right?
Oh, okay.
So you had a moonlight.
Oh,
You
okay.
worked at Macy's part time. I
Hmm.
worked doing real estate. So what's up? Uh, I worked with two different brokers. Okay,
Hmm.
one was a Latino on the South Shore.
Yeah.
He was an out and out slime ball because well, that's another story. But and then I left there and went to a North Shore uh, Realty Center. By the way, did you get the pictures I sent you?
I did.
You
Your
don't? Okay,
I
that's
got them all, yeah.
yeah. Remember,
The red
not for
convertible.
public. Yeah, but that's okay. But the pictures of you know what, the romantic ones are
Oh,
not for public
those are
consumption.
awesome and classic. I love it.
Anyway, so anyway, but my point was that I was told at both real estate offices, especially the one that was in Smithtown,
Hmm.
okay, because it was a all white neighborhood. Under no circumstances was I to bring any people of color
No.
to white neighborhoods to show them houses.
Whoa.
No, now wait.
Wow. Yeah.
Okay, that was called steering. That, in other words,
Yeah.
you steered people of
You're steering the herd away from the
Is
white
well,
areas.
you're still steering the individual, the black or people of color individuals, away from white neighborhoods. Now, Newsday just did a big about that years or so.
Oh, you were breaking up.
And they're investigating this.
Oh, you were
It's
breaking
illegal.
up.
It's illegal. Okay.
Hmm. Hmm.
Okay. I'm breaking up.
Oh, now you're
I'm
back.
hearing you fine.
Now you're
Okay.
fine. Yeah.
So okay. So even though it was legally verboten, they were still doing it. And
Hmm.
I was told by the one in Smithtown, the broker in Smithtown, that hey, they'll burn down my office if you do that. He was clear that the violence would ensue. Okay, so I'm thinking, what a sleazy business. So now, of course, Newsday had done this big investigation, and they're finding out that it's really, really true. There's a reason why Central Islip, for example, had a multicultural population, and where I live in Shoreham Wading River doesn't have a multicultural population. Okay, there's a reason for that. Okay, and so this is so that's structural racism in a nutshell. And now the conservative Republicans, they don't want to have to talk about this stuff.
It was
Okay,
planned.
what's that?
It was planned.
Yes, absolutely, it was
The
planned.
whole grid of all of it, of
Yeah,
the whites and the mixing and all of that was part of the plan of, okay, this is going to be this is going to be that.
yeah. So
Hmm.
it's really kind of a sad situation. I mean, this whole idea of when you say, well, there's no we don't want kids to learn about critical race theory. That again, that was a high end topic in law schools. But again, my students in Central Islip, they lived it. They knew it already.
Yeah, I
This was
mean,
not
also,
something.
like, I mean, me growing up, my parents had a restaurant in Ronkonkoma, which was all predominantly white. Was
Right.
Sachem High School, Ronkonkoma area. But then, I went to school in CI, so like I saw the different, you know,
Sure.
racism in Ronkonkoma more as opposed to Central Islip. People in Ronkonkoma are always looking at us like dumb Asians who don't know how to speak English, who should go back to our country. But like,
Sure.
what? Then why are you eating our food? I don't understand. And just so you know, we went to college, all of us, so
Right.
and we speak English better than you. All of them be like, oh my God, your English is so good. Why is it so good? Or where did you come from? And I'll be like, well, where did you come from?
Sure.
Like.
Brooklyn. They came from
I,
Brooklyn.
I came from Long Island. That's where I came from. I was like, what kind of questions do you want to know? Like,
I had a girl who was her background was Indian, Hindu,
mm-hmm.
and gorgeous, just a gorgeous girl. Inside and out, she was gorgeous. I loved
Yeah,
her. But she went into a 7-Eleven one time, and some white idiot, guy behind the counter,
yeah.
made a comment, something like that. And she said, first of all, my English is better than yours.
Doors. Yeah,
And
yeah,
I mean, she basically skinned him alive verbally. She just
yeah,
crucified him. And,
yeah,
and because there comes a point when I could see where a person of color says, you know what, I've had enough of this overt. It's racism, but it's also it shows the ignorance of the speaker
yeah,
doing it. It shows
yeah,
a real ignorance of somehow they think they're better just because they're white. I
yeah.
mean,
Or they
that's
just don't. They're just not aware, and they haven't been around many races to
right.
know anything.
Sure. Really, I think it's sad. I mean, I remember teaching Black Lit. There were even things that I would have taught had I really known about them, because I didn't know about them, even though I had been doing a lot of studying.
Yeah.
One of them, they started to talk about last year or so, was the race, the Tulsa, Oklahoma race massacre. It was I think the town was called Greenwood or something, and it was called was it the Black Wall Street? It was a very
Yes,
prosperous.
yes, yes. I think I just recently found out more information about that.
Right. And so hundreds they are not even sure how many black people were murdered. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
But they burnt down their houses and everything else. I think there was also, they used planes to bomb them. It was like one of the first times that bombs were used on American
Oh,
soil for Americans.
wow.
But and as bad as that was,
Hmm.
that's now become relatively well known. I've got another one for you that nobody really knows about. It's called the Red Summer of 1919. Okay,
Hmm. Hmm.
1919. And I think that the Tulsa massacre was 19. 20, 20 or 21. I think 1921 was 2 years after that. But the Red Summer was in many ways worse because there were massacres of black people all across the country, dozens, okay? From I think it was from the spring of 1919 into the fall of 1919. It wasn't just in one spot, it was across the country,
Wow.
okay? There were a lot of reasons for it. I mean, there, which you can look it up, but you Google it. You'll Google
Yeah.
this, the Red Summer 1919. You
Yeah.
Google it.
Yeah.
So there's all this stuff that most white people not only they don't know about it, they don't care about it, they don't want to hear about it.
Yeah.
Okay, and they
Yeah.
certainly don't want their kids to hear about it.
Yeah.
Okay, and which is really really sad because it's like saying to like if my parents and their generation said, "Well, we don't want our kids to know about the Holocaust." Are you kidding me?
Know about everything. You should know about every single race, every
Yeah,
single, all of it.
but you know it's like no, it's I mean part of it though I have to say it's part of it's normal. I remember the first time I was teaching school, obviously, and I forget what year it was, but it must have been I don't know in 15 years, whatever it was. I mentioned the Beatles.
Yeah.
You know the rock, the Beatles,
Yeah.
the Beatles. Okay, they were really big in like the early to mid '60s,
Yeah.
and then thereafter.
Hmm.
I had students in my class that didn't know anything about the Beatles.
Oh.
Now, kids don't. Uh, kids are, thank goodness, kids are not stupid, but they are ignorant because they're kids.
Because the
Okay.
kids, they
Yeah.
only know what's being fed to them knowledge wise
That's
in their
exactly.
home and then in the school. They only know that. Like, I was just talking to someone just before this, and he was not allowed music in his home. He was not
Right.
allowed TV in his home, and they
Right.
were a very religious family. So he didn't hear Billy Joel, song
Right.
until he was like 15 years old.
Right. Huh.
Yeah.
Uh, well, this is it. I mean, it's stunning to me, but I used to tell students. I used to hear teachers sometimes in the lunchroom. They would talk about how oh these kids don't know anything and blah, blah, blah. And I said stop right now. I said you need to thank your lucky stars that these kids are ignorant. Otherwise, you'd be out of a job. That's your
Hmm.
job is to make them less ignorant. Okay,
Yeah.
I mean, we'd be starving.
Yeah.
As teachers. You have to do that. But I mean, there are certain things that I find sad about. I think I told you the story about this is for this whole notion of race um, and ignorance. I mean, I think part of the thing about the ignorance of the thing is that it makes it so much easier to sell people stuff that is just when you read up on it and get to know certain stuff that makes it like oh my God, yeah, ignorance makes things much easier to sell people on.
Ignorance is bliss.
Well, that's true. And you know
Yeah.
what's so interesting about that?
Hmm.
This sounds the people they are happier. People who are ignorant are happier because
Hmm.
they don't realize how bad things can be.
Yeah,
A lot
you're
of
in you're in your little bubble and you don't
I
realize
mean,
all these other things.
in fact, look at little kids. I was reading this thing. I was watching a news program about what's happening in Ukraine,
Yeah.
and so the reporter asked this one woman, "Well, how what they're hiding in the subway tunnels," and asked, "Well, how are the kids doing?" Well, they're playing with each other, and they're just being kids.
Yeah.
And again, because what? Because kids, they're young, they're
Yeah.
ignorant,
Yeah.
and what do they know? All they know is that, well, something's wrong. We got to go. We have to stay in the subway, whatever.
Yeah.
But they're playing with each other and they're laughing and having a good time. Okay, that is to me the definition of ignorance is bliss. Okay,
Ignorance is bliss. They're in their little bubble and they're just staying in this present moment. They're not worried about
yeah,
all the other things around them at that.
yeah. I mean, but I think this whole notion of uh, censorship and trying to keep people from learning anything. For example, I'll give you here's one. I mentioned the Catholic Church, okay, and the Index of Prohibited Books.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, I think it must have been in the 50s. I was probably 10, 12-ish, okay. The Catholic Church was always, again, censoring stuff because they have their control reasons and stuff.
Yeah.
And they were big on the like like a lot of politicians, oh, certain things are obscene. They're dirty. We don't want you to
Yeah.
watch them or see
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
And of course, obscenity is really one man's obscenity is
Mhm.
another man's. Who's that? It's another man's. Okay, that's not for me. Um, one man's obscenity is another man's pleasure read. So they had what's something called the Legion of Decency, capital L, capital D, the Legion of Decency. And what it was supposed to do, what they made people, Catholics, do in church, okay?
Mhm.
They would make them stand up and take a vow
Mhm.
to the Legion of Decency
Yeah.
and not to watch certain things. And they had a rating system for movies.
Oh.
And so like A, B, C, and C meant condemned.
Oh.
You couldn't watch that. Yeah,
Don't go there.
go to that movie, your soul goes straight to hell. You
Yeah.
go to that movie, you go out of the theater, get run over by a bus, your soul goes straight to hell.
Straight
Okay.
to hell.
Yeah. So now, one of the movies that they were protesting was called, I remember this clearly, was called The Moon is Blue.
Mhm.
I think I even saw it years ago.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons that we were protesting it was because there was, I guess, they used the word, because one of the women must have been pregnant. They used the word pregnant.
Pregnant.
That's it,
That
pregnant.
was the word?
That was the word. Okay?
What?
Yeah.
What?
So, yeah, that was one of the main things they pointed out. And I'll never forget it. I'm sitting down with they make me everybody stand up, and
Yeah.
I'm sitting next to my father, and he gets up, and my father, you would have loved him. What a good man,
Oh.
what a good
Mhm.
soul he was. Uh, Gentle, funny. He never said a negative word about race or religion.
Mhm.
He was an orphan, and and the best advice he gave me some great advice. One of
He was an orphan?
huh?
He was an
He was an
orphan?
orphan. Yeah,
Mhm.
he was an orphan. In fact, I think his mother died in the influenza epidemic of 1918. How
Oh.
about that? So
Oh, wow.
yeah, so that's a little historical factoid. Anyway, but I see him standing up, and I'm looking up at him. And he did it. He stood up, and I knew he didn't want to be standing up.
Mhm.
He was basically, again, peer pressure.
Mhm. Doing what
Most,
you're told. Yeah.
mostly my mother standing next to him, who probably would have,
Would have
you
jabbed
know,
him.
yeah, exactly.
Get up.
Yeah. And I could tell he was really under duress, and I felt so bad for him. I felt
Yeah.
bad, even as a kid, realizing he doesn't want to do this. He knows
Yeah.
it's not right.
But he's
Okay.
being forced to do it. Yeah.
Exactly. And
Mhm.
I remember, I never forgot that story because I'm thinking, again, the church once again manipulated their. He wasn't devout. He didn't care a rat's butt about a religion, but my mother was kind of,
The
into it.
mother was more religious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My father's attitude was, first of all, the best advice was live and let live. In other words,
Mhm.
I don't care what color you are. I don't
Yeah.
care what religion you are. You
Mhm.
leave me alone. I'll leave you alone.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll give you another real quick one. This has nothing to do with censorship or book banning.
This is
The
the
best of
sidebar. The
Yeah,
sidebar.
this is sidebar. Yeah, the best advice he ever gave me about women. This is great. I used
Mm.
to teach this to my male students, especially.
Yeah.
He said, "Look," he said, "I don't want when it came to treating women a certain way."
Yeah.
And he said to me, "Son," he used to always call me pal. He never called me by my first
Oh.
name.
Yeah.
I remember he never called me pal. He never called me William. He didn't call me Billy. He always
Yeah.
called me pal. One day
Wow.
I said, Pop, do you know what my first name is? Do you really know? So, but the advice that he gave me was very clear, and I never forgot it. And boy, it worked like a charm for me.
Yeah.
He said, "You know what, pal? I want
Oh.
you to remember. I want you to treat all women like ladies. The
Mhm.
ones who are will expect it, and the ones who aren't will love you for it."
Oh, that's so
How about
sweet.
that? He was
Yeah.
sweet. He was a
That's so
sweet man.
sweet.
He was a
That's so
sweet man.
sweet.
He's
Yeah.
probably the most saintly person I ever knew on the planet,
Mhm.
really, and
Yeah.
was not religious at all.
Yeah.
But that was great advice because I always treated women with respect,
Yeah.
and when I
Mhm.
talked to them, I actually looked into their eyes and not at
Yeah.
their bosoms and things like that, stuff.
You
I
didn't look
tried.
at that boot. You didn't look down.
No, I didn't look down. I always looked in their eyes. I gave them credit for having brains and
Yes,
all
they
that.
probably appreciated the fact that you
Yeah.
actually listened to them, respected, their brain first.
Okay, but so now going back to the book banning.
Yeah, the book banning. So wait, well, I have a question with the book banning. Are you finding like how are you dealing with it with the library and the surrounding
Well, that's a great question, and the issue is that we have policies about that, and the direct remember the library director is actually has under the law
Mhm.
because school districts and libraries are are under the aegis of the New York State Education Department.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
so what happens is that the superintendent of schools and the library director are equals. She's the superintendent of our library district. He's the superintendent of our school district.
yeah.
Right. So, but we were distinct entities. All right.
Hmm.
At our
Hmm.
school, high school, and our library are connected. The buildings are connected, but we are
Yeah,
totally separate entities. Okay.
yeah.
But she is as adamant about the First Amendment as I am, and there's no way that we're going to permit any kind of censorship. Okay. So for example, uh, if somebody said, "Well, we want this book banned," in fact, we already had somebody come in and wanted any books, didn't want her children to be allowed to have any books involving black people taken from the library. Yeah, I know.
Really?
Yeah, really. I'm not making this stuff up. There are people like that. If there's anything having to do with black people, she didn't want her kids
Oh
to
my
have.
God. Come on.
Yes. Okay. So, but I'm telling you, there are people like that, and she's, of course, a right-wing loony Republican, which explains everything you need to know. Okay. So, but I said to the library director just a couple of weeks ago, because we were talking about how there's more and more the attempts to ban books in certain libraries, public libraries around the country, and school libraries. Okay. So I said, well, look, if somebody wants us to take out a particular book,
Hmm.
I will say, well, even though I'm against uh, book banning, I will consider it as the president of the board of trustees. As long as you understand that if I take out that book if you want me to take don't want Mouse MAUS the book about the Holocaust. If you want me to take that book out of or us to take that book out of the library, then you also have to understand when I do that, I'm taking the Bible out of the library too. No Bibles. And probably most other religious books, the Quran, a few others. Because if you want to talk about an obscene book, as far as I'm concerned, the Bible, especially the Old Testament, is a perfect example. Okay, I mean, it's I have a list. Let me look. I have a list here someplace around. Where is it? Wait, hold on. Uh, it starts off with incest. Okay, with Adam
Really?
and Eve.
Well,
Yeah,
I've never read the whole thing. So
and consider yourself lucky. Okay,
yeah,
you're not missing too much because it's
yeah.
mostly myth, and I mean most of the Old Testament has a lot to do. It didn't come from the Hebrews. It came
But
from
it starts
uh,
off with incest.
well, yeah, because Adam and Eve, right? First people, okay,
Hmm.
first
Yeah,
couple, and
yeah.
then of course, where do they get the rest of the humanity from? Well, somebody has to be made. Let's say that uh, they have a child. What the first? It was Cain, Abel, and Seth, I think, were the first three children of Adam and Eve. So Cain and Abel. So Cain slew Abel. So now you got murder, fratricide. Okay, right? But also then somebody had to mate with if not Eve, then when they had a girl child, then probably one of the sons would mate with her, and so on down the line. Okay,
Yeah,
so in order to have create well populate the earth, that's how it has to be done.
yeah,
I mean, that's not the only element of incest. So I remember asking a Baptist pastor about that. I said, "Well, come on, what's this all about? I thought incest was
yeah,
supposed to be sin."
yeah,
His response was, "Well, that was before, cultural things and things weren't considered a sin, and it was just." And I'm thinking it was like gobbledygook to me. I said,
yeah,
"Okay, fine."
yeah, yeah,
But now you want my kid to read that, right? And then, of course, it gets worse. So now, of course, you go up a couple of generations, and then you
yeah.
have a Lot. I don't know if you remember this. Do you ever know that story about Lot? And they were in Sodom and Gomorrah, and the angels tell them, "Listen, whatever you do, you leave Sodom and Gomorrah, but don't look back." Okay, and she
Mhm.
looks back. She turns into a pillar of salt. Okay,
Oh, okay. Hmm.
I don't know if you ever heard that.
I don't think heard the
Oh,
whole
I'm
thing.
so you know what? I'm so happy you don't know this stuff in a
Well,
way.
no, I like a lot of these, like a lot of this thing is great that you're,
But I'm
teaching
saying,
me
look, I
too.
think
Yeah.
from the and in terms of literature, I'm unhappy that you don't know those stories. On the
I
other
know.
hand,
Yeah.
but on the other hand, that in some ways it's sometimes better that you don't know those stories. I think in some ways. But anyway, I wouldn't. But the story about Lot is Lot. They if you read it closely, when they're in Sodom and Gomorrah, some strangers come to town who I think, as I recall, were probably angels. Anyway, but he winds up trying to pimp his daughters so that for these strangers, so that the rest of the townspeople, again, I guess the intentions were honorable, don't murder them. Okay, so let's move on. So now we get past that.
Yeah.
Um, Now they leave Sodom and Gomorrah, and now uh, two of his daughters think, well, okay, wow, the earth has ended. Okay, earth has ended, and but we have to repopulate it. So what do? They rape their father, Lot, okay, at night in order to start to repopulate the earth. So now I don't even know what to call that sin is. I guess it's incest, it's rape, certainly on their part. Uh,
That's the complete opposite, right?
yeah. But what I'm trying to say to you is
Yeah.
throughout the whole Bible, I have a list here. Hey, you have fratricide, I already mentioned that, incest, mentioned that, adultery, murder, drunkenness, slavery, bestiality, baby killing, torture, parents killing their own children, and soldiers slaughtering defenseless women and children. And of course, it's almost if this doesn't give kids nightmares, I mean, what the heck gives kids nightmares? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I mean, like, this is not how adults talk about these things that people want us to follow. So this is
Yeah, I
why
mean, so
this is
I'm
why
not
this
looking.
podcast is great. So then you can shed light and remind the masses.
Now again, look, I'm going to tell you right now. Look, there's an opposite side of my opinion here. And the religious people will yell and scream and moan.
But that's
Uh,
okay. You
but yeah,
have
which
your
is
views, they have their
well,
views.
that's
It's
it.
okay. Yeah.
But the issue is, please don't tell me that does the Bible have moral things to say? Yeah, absolutely it does. Okay, especially the New Testament. Although there's a lot of, I mean, I mentioned Thomas Jefferson before, but one of the things that Jefferson did, he created his own Bible, and what he did was he cut and pasted all the stuff that didn't have any miracles and phantasmagorical stuff in it. In other words, he made up it was all strictly these are the facts, ma'am, just the facts. Boom, all right. And so to him, because he wasn't, it was a moral book without the magic,
Mm-hmm.
okay,
Mm-hmm.
without turning
Yeah.
uh, water into wine and
Yeah.
taking a fish and a loaf of bread and turning it into 5,000 fish and loaves of bread. I
Yeah.
mean, so I give Jefferson big points for that, okay, because at least what he was trying to do is appreciate and have people read the moral aspects. In
Mm-hmm.
this case, it was the New Testament.
Mm-hmm.
But my point is that if they're talking about people are saying I don't want my kids to read books because they're obscene, you can start with the Bible, okay? And I think that the Bible has its merits, but you want the truth. One of the best books. If you said to me, "What books do you want to have on a desert island?" The Bible would not be one of them.
Yeah.
Probably my first choice would be Tom Jones by Henry Fielding, which is an 18th century novel. It's kind of a satirical novel, but it has probably more wisdom and morality in it than most holy books that I've read over the
Yeah,
years.
I would love to list out your favorite, top 10 books also to.
Well, if you have my old reading list for World Lit, you're on your way.
Oh, okay.
See that now,
We need a copy of we need a copy of that. I'm sure one of your students has it.
and you as a former student don't have it. I am appalled. I'm
I know. Oh
insulted.
my God.
I'm insulted.
Horrible.
I am
Horrible.
really, really, really.
I'm in my art bubble.
Well, it's just, but I also think the other part of it too, what we got here. Oh, really? Uh,
1037.
okay, good, because I guess we have to end soon. But
Yeah.
the other part of it is too, what's also laughable to me about politicians, right-wing politicians, and parents, they're trying to keep their children away from all these quote terrible, uncomfortable, obscene things unquote. And it's a laugher because most kids I know have their own little computers and they have their smartphones.
They can find anything out they want.
Duh,
All you need to
duh.
do is Google. I mean, I still laugh about it now with my kids. I'm like, oh, every time they have a question, I'm like, Google it. I'm like, I was like, back in the days, I had to go to the library, get a book out, and research things. I mean, like, it's
Yeah.
just funny now. Now I
Well,
can
I mean,
actually
look,
say back in
I
the
even
days.
yeah, I even did it with you before. I said, "Hey, Google that." I
Google
said,
it.
"Hey,
Google it.
the
Yeah.
red summer of
Yeah.
1990, Google it." You know?
Google it. I
Oh,
mean,
you
yeah, like
Google?
my girlfriend, it's funny, like I never really heard that phrase until my girlfriend kept saying it to me. She's like, yeah, I just Google
Yeah,
everything.
yeah.
And she's older than me. So it's funny that she says it to me. She's like, yeah, I Google everything. I was like, really? And so like then I'll tell my friend, I'm like, yeah, just Google everything.
Yeah, look, I mean, when people talk about parents' rights, but well, parents' rights end as far as I'm concerned when what they want is keeping other people from wanting to read what they want to read or see a movie that they want to see. That's bunk. You know
Or
what?
you
You
trying
want
to
to tell you
control somebody else. Yeah.
now you want to tell your kids don't read. Okay, I mentioned Tom Jones. Don't read. What's your son's name?
Jacob.
Jacob.
Mhm.
See, Jacob, I don't want you to read Tom Jones by Henry Fielding. There's lots of infidelity and whatever in there. Okay, fine. So guess what Jacob's going to do? He's going to
You'll
say,
want
okay,
to find out more.
yes, yes,
The
yes,
opposite of
mom,
the
yes,
opposite
mom.
of don't take that cookie.
That's right. Yes, mom. Okay, I won't read that book. And then what he's going to do, if he was at all inquisitive and maybe a little defiant like I was,
Yeah.
he's going to pick up his cell phone and he's going to Google Tom Jones by Henry Fielding. He'll get the plot, he'll get this, he'll get that, whatever. I remember when I was a kid, young man, we boys wanted to see nudie magazines. Okay, now of
Yeah.
course they would never sell them to people underage and blah blah blah. And those were funny in those times because they erased a lot of stuff. Okay, like certain things having to do with women's nether regions and things. Pubic hair in particular. It's women. Women they look like mannequins in Macy's, store before they put the clothes on.
Oh.
So, but hey, somebody always got their hands
On
on
something.
a nudie magazine.
And you knew who that person is has it, right?
Yeah, exactly. So even when things are made illegal, whether it were cigarettes, alcohol,
Yeah. Yeah.
nudie magazines,
The masses will, you'll find it. You'll find
yeah,
someone
and
who has
and
it.
and that's why parents, I find, sometimes look, on the one hand, they infuriate me when they want control over stuff they shouldn't have control over. The
Yeah.
other thing, like, I don't think I'm going to say a parent's going to tell me that no, I don't want I don't want my student to read Crime and Punishment because there's a double axe murder in it. Well, excuse me. What's your background? Do you have any background in literature and interpretation of literature or anything like that? It's like my saying to my doctor,
Yeah.
uh, she'll say to me, okay, you need penicillin, but well, wait a second, I don't know if penicillin is the right drug for me. How about just aspirin? Well, what is that about? Or it's I don't have a medical degree.
Yeah. Yeah.
I count on her having her medical degree, and I count on her expertise.
Yeah. Her
And
research that she knowledge that she knows and background of it.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Hmm.
There's a point now. There's a point where okay, like what schools do to appease parents like that, they try to say, well, okay, we'll ask the teacher to give another book instead. Okay,
Yeah.
it's cheesy, for political reasons, I would say to the principal, yeah, okay, fine, I'll give another book. But uh, I think my real feeling about all of this is that it's sad when we have a bunch of people for all the ill intention. In other words, they want people to be ignorant. They want to take over, like the conservatives want to take over public schools and make them private. Okay, I think I mentioned that before. To
Yeah.
me, that means the truth will no longer, it'll still be available.
Yeah.
It won't be easily available. And you're
Yeah.
going to have a lot of programmed, brainwashed kids that are
Yeah.
brainwashed about really sad stuff. I mean, if you're trying to preach kids or hide the racist history of this country from
Hmm.
kids,
Hmm.
a big mistake. No,
Yeah.
because you're just feeding white supremacy. I'll tell you who's really gotten to be terrible is the white Christian nationalists. They've been that this way for a long time. Why do you think they're for homeschooling, right? They've been homeschooling for a long time. Now, I'll be honest with you. They do it for religious reasons.
Yeah.
I told my wife that if we ever had kids, I wouldn't want to send them to school. I'd want to teach them myself. How about
Because you
that?
want to teach them all of the knowledge instead of
Well,
just
yeah,
part of it,
yeah,
right?
because you know what it is. I know where the educational bodies are buried. In other
Yeah.
words, I know what books. Yeah, I know what
Yeah.
books they should be reading.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
would give them, and also they would learn. I know that they would learn faster.
Yeah.
Okay, if I had relatively intelligent kids, they would learn faster, and I can point them in the right direction. And like for example, I don't believe that I'm not a big fan of grades. In other words, like 11th grade, 12th grade.
Yeah.
I had 11th grade students, for example, they could have been in college.
Yeah.
They were that
Exactly.
smart.
Hmm.
That's and I had 12th grade students that should have been back in sixth grade. But
Yeah.
but the point is that there are political reasons for that. Okay, in other words, like for example, I remember one principal telling me, "Well, if I did it your way and moved those
Hmm.
kids up and out of the high school, then
Yeah.
you and your colleagues would be out of a job." I mean,
That's
that's
what he said?
yeah, yeah.
Oh
I
my
mean,
God.
and again, I understood it from the practical,
Yeah.
occupational, political point of view,
Mhm.
but this is the world we're kind of in right now, and I think that my only comment would be to your friends and former students of mine is, gee, please be very careful what you're buying into, especially when it comes to politics and politicians.
Politics, yeah. Politics
Yeah,
is a huge, like, they're trying to control everybody's mind.
yeah,
And
and I think that the students from Central Islip um, should know better than most
yeah.
about this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I could tell you about. Sometime we'll talk about racist teachers. That's another story. Okay.
Oh, I would love to.
Yeah, but we'll save that for another time.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Anything else you want to ask me before we quit?
No, I think we're good. I appreciate you. We're doing this little Captain Willie podcast today on book banning and for everyone to
And
for
censorship.
their,
Listen,
yeah,
this is big.
censorship.
This
Hmm.
is one of the big political issues of our time.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking that maybe going forward, you have to let people know that we're going to maybe do some more of these. And I don't know whether we should call it the Captain Willie Show, which I used to call my
I
classes.
think
My
I'm
classes.
gonna think I'm gonna title as the Captain Willie
Yeah, I
Show.
don't know. You could also call it the wit and wisdom of Captain Willie. You could do
Oh,
that
I
too.
like that. I like that too. I like that
But
too.
I thank you so much for letting me vent and explain about certain things that are they're current in our society.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're also, like I said, this book banning censorship thing is very much of the moment for me as
Yeah. Yeah.
a library trustee. And so I think it's important for young parents, young people, anybody to know this
Yeah.
stuff. That
Exactly.
libraries are the last bastion of the First Amendment in this country, and
Yeah.
the librarians have to be neutral in the sense that,
Yes.
hey,
Exactly.
if parents feel or people feel that, well, you got too many books that are liberal, okay,
Yeah.
so we'll add some conservative books. In other words,
Yeah.
put both,
Exactly.
put both sides on the
It needs
shelves,
to be
okay?
like Switzerland. It has to have like, neutral ground.
Yeah, yeah. Put both ends of
Put
the
it all.
spectrum politically on the shelves, and let people read for themselves and make a decision. Okay,
Exactly.
I
Exactly.
could.
This is why I appreciate you doing this with me and us continuing this, wisdoms of Mr. Schiavo.
Well, some of my former colleagues might not agree with you, but
Okay,
however,
that's their point of
but
view.
I really would like you as a parent to. I'm sure you know this. Now you know if you didn't know already, but your children. I should quote Gibran. Your children are not your children. They
Mm.
are what is it? Something of the life. They are about the life's longing for itself. That was a great.
That's huge. That's a huge. I
No, it
love
is.
I love quotes.
Yeah, but did you read The Prophet ever by Gibran?
No.
Oh, grab a copy. Read. It's called The Prophet by Khalil Gibran. Khhlil Gibran. Gibran. It's poetic. It's
Yeah.
very thin. It's a thin
Ooh.
volume. You
Yeah.
can you can go through it in a half an hour,
Yeah.
and show it to your kids.
Mm.
In the 50s, I believe, almost every college student used to have a paperback copy of it in their back pocket.
Mm, okay.
Yeah, the book, and there's great wisdom there. Great
Okay,
wisdom.
great. All right.
On that note,
Yes.
let's remember. I was all about not knowledge. I was all about, for me, teaching was about not just knowledge. It was about the getting of wisdom, and the
Mm,
getting of wisdom together,
yes.
teacher and students alike. So I can
Love
leave
it.
you on that word, wisdom. How's that?
Yes. Perfect. Thank you so much. And we'll continue this again.
Linda, always a pleasure. Always a pleasure.
Thank you. Have a great day, and we'll talk again.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.